that you had to let people in. So perfect. All right, let's get started. Thank everyone for joining. Tonight, I'll call the meeting to order at 7:05. Milton School Building Committee. We'll start with a roll call vote as I typically do. I'll call you out as I see you. Carrie Hurley.
Here.
Perfect. Dr. Miranda.
Here.
Thank you. Glenn Hoffman.
Here.
All right. Tim Lombard.
Here.
Scott Tereshek.
Here.
And Akwe Bong.
I'm here.
Excellent. Thank you. Mike Zulis will be joining, like I said, probably about 10 or 15 minutes late. He's at a wake right now. And then Betty, typically jumps on at 7:30. So Glenn, appreciate you keep an eye on that for the panelists. The first thing that we have, or second thing is I always mess up on our agenda is citizen speak. So we ask if, we allocate 15 minutes at the beginning of our meeting for any public comment. If you'd like, please raise your hand. And when you do, please announce your name and street address. And we ask that you try to keep your commentary to 3 minutes. So if there's anybody in the audience that does want to speak, please raise your hand and we'll call on you. Yep.
Pete Jackson has his hand raised. I'll bring him in.
Mr. Jackson. Yes, sir.
Good. Okay. Good evening. It just took me a while to get unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I just like to request or ask that the committee consider moving to an in-person meetings or perhaps hybrid. I know it's easier for attendance to do Zoom, but I think it really limits the opportunity for public involvement and public engaging with this process. As you know, it's a critical process and it affects a lot around town, and we're heading toward town meeting with some very important questions. So I really think opening up to in-person meetings will give the public a better opportunity. Or, alternatively, just have some open public meetings at an in-person location so that people can become more familiar. That's all I've got. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. And just seeing if anybody else. All right, seeing no more hands, we'll move on. Next thing on our agenda is approval of meeting minutes. So the 3 outstanding meeting minutes that we have are from November 21st. So Akko, those ones were assigned to you previously. So if you could just kind of update those minutes. Dr. Miranda, I got yours, but again, the date was wrong, so it threw me off on my review. And then from our last meeting, Tim, the ones you had. So for now, I'll kind of table them until our next meeting because we didn't have the kind of final ones to distribute.
Yep. So I'm taking notes this evening in the format that you sent me. That's the correct format. And I'm also going to translate the last meeting minutes into the proper revised format.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thanks.
Sean, what date do you say I owe you?
11/21, November 21st of last year. So the good thing with it, you compare your notes that you have. You can also go back to the podcast that Jay does and derive further ones from there.
I'll follow up with you outside the meeting to find the podcast.
Okay.
The final location.
Thank you, sir.
Sean, is now an okay time to suggest what we talked about, where I take on a kind of a committed period of time of note taking and we rotate that way rather than every meeting? Kind of gets My thought is it gets somebody into the groove of taking the notes, not like, oh, geez, a number of months ago I took notes. How do you do it again?
Yep. Yeah, I appreciate that. And as I said, I'll reward you with many 6 packs of beer that'll leave at your doorstep.
Okay, not necessary, but thank you.
No, but honestly, like having somebody kind of on the, on the record for a secretary position, if you want to call it that, quarterly or something like that, I think would be extremely helpful. You know what I mean? So I appreciate you doing that, Tim. And then, essentially, if you're not at a meeting, I'll just request somebody, ask somebody to volunteer, essentially to take the minutes then. So, cool. Thank you. So next thing on our agenda, or item 4, is our old business. So just to give the committee an update, I presented to the Conservation Commission at their last meeting, which was at the beginning of the month. They hold their meetings the first Tuesday of every month. It was very good, informative session. There was a lot of commentary back and forth where we kind of brought them up to speed on the new metrics that we're doing as far as the land swap, and then the proposed language or the proposed parcels that are being included. So the outcome of that, which was kind of what I expected, is that meeting was informational only to the Conservation Commission. And, it's following up this upcoming Saturday with the site walk at Gow Road and all the other properties. And so that's happening. We're meeting at Gow Road at 8:30 in the morning, and then basically having a public meeting at that point. And then, from Gow Road, it's basically going through the other parcels that are on the books as part of the swap. The key thing to note is when we do this site walk, we've been advised to essentially stay together, not answer questions or anything like that. It's an informational only. The questions, because essentially it is an open meeting, we're having a meeting after the site walks at a location in person, and then use that as a way for public to enter into questions or commentary. So, with that, I'll kind of open it up to everybody first to see, who's available that can make it, and then find out based on that roster, kind of where we stand for an open meeting. Yep, Tim.
Yeah, I believe I'm available. Well, I had soccer, but now I have a blown ACL and meniscus, so I think I can join you.
Perfect for a site walk, it sounds.
Yeah.
All right. I will be there. Yeah, Dr. Miranda.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not available.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Aqua.
I'll make myself available.
All right, thank you, sir. And Carrie?
I will try my best, but I am a single parent because my husband is going to be off skiing for the weekend. So that's a large amount of time for me to commit to, being the only person available to drive. So yep. I'll do my best.
That's fine. Just give the kids the keys to the car. Let them figure it out. It'll be fine.
Yeah, if I can bring
I have a teenager that would accept that challenge. No problem.
I'm sure he would.
If I can bring one kid, I can definitely be there for the whole thing.
You can bring as many. Yeah, I would encourage children to come to this. It's a good thing. See where they're going to school. Scott.
I was planning on being out of town, but if we need a quorum, and I'm the last person standing, I'll change the plans and I'll be there.
I appreciate that. I'll let you know kind of where we stand. And Mike, I think you're the last one on the list. Sorry.
Is this for Saturday?
For Saturday morning, yeah, for the site walk.
All right. I need to. I haven't yet been told what my schedule is for the weekend, so I'll ask tonight and see if I can get back to you.
Okay. All right, I appreciate that.
This is Saturday morning from 8:30 to 4, or
no? It's 8:30 roughly to about 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock. Okay.
Yeah. We're gonna try to not take as as much time as we did at the parcels last time. I think there was a lot of hanging around. I think, knowing that most of the parcels we saw on the last site walk, we just want to spend a little more time on some of the new ones. But that's the goal. I'll have a better idea because I'll be posting the meeting probably tomorrow.
Okay.
All right. And I'll check with Betty once she gets on. So Scott, I appreciate your flexibility. I'll let you know. Any other questions in regard to the Concom meeting that we had? And my guess is after we do this site walk, we'll reconvene with the Conservation Commission, and most likely, they'll be entering into a vote in support of the articles. So that's kind of our path right now moving forward for some of that stuff. And if no other commentary, I'll kind of move on to the next agenda item. And seeing none. So the next stuff is essentially new business, and it's new business, old business. So for the annual town meeting coming up, one of the articles that we have, our third article that we have is essentially a funding article. And, there's been a bunch of meetings that we've talked about trying to come up with tasks that we want to cover under this funding, and then essentially get budgetary numbers for this stuff. I kind of ran through what I think should be a list of it, but open to hear to see if anybody has any commentary above and beyond kind of what we discussed previously. And seeing none. So from the notes I had from previous discussions, obviously, we will have architectural services that we'll need to kind of take the conceptual floor plans. So that's something else I'll talk about too. Take the conceptual floor plans and progress them for us, so that next year in May, we kind of have a much better detailed layout. It will take into account a number of meetings and probably a couple of iterations on that conceptual plan to iron out some of the details. So the conceptual do
you envision this round of funding requests to advance from a conceptual floor plan up to a schematic design, or not as formal as that? I don't know.
Probably not as formal as that, and the reason I say that is, as I start looking at it, essentially the timeline, by the time we get funding allocated in May, advertise for professional services, OPM and stuff like that, and then how it lines up with going into May's town meeting next year. It's not enough time, I think, for them to do that level of schematic design that we might want them to do, trying to condense that all down. So it's, call it pre-schematic design. But what we've done is the previous funding that we're going to use DRA for to do a feasibility study at Fontbonne, we're reallocating that right now, and we're going to be utilizing DRA to develop, conceptual drawings similar to what we did before at Gow Road, for the new parcel that we picked at our last meeting. So I've got the contract from them today. I'm going to sign it tomorrow, hand it back to them, and they're going to get going kind of on the conceptual design. The goal is after that, take that conceptual design and just progress it as much as we can over the next year. So that's kind of one portion, of that, of the funding article that we have there. The second one is stormwater runoff. So we want to engage civil engineers kind of at the same time that we have DRA architecture there, mainly to mitigate stormwater runoff, so we comply with the stormwater statutes of the state. So that's another one. One other that was brought up by Carl from DRA is also a geotechnical study, just so we know what type of soils we're dealing with for foundation conditions. So geotech is another one, and then finally traffic. As we know, that's kind of been a hot item for a lot of them. And when I took them and just kind of scaled out, we had numbers from the traffic study, if you remember, Mr. Vinod Kalakiri from BHB that we had in probably about 6 to 8 months ago. I had some conceptual numbers from him that I scaled up a little because I think it's going to be more than just one quick, study that we're having him do before. Essentially, when I add everything up, the number I'm coming up with is roughly about 250,000. And where that is, rough numbers right now, and we can move these around as we kind of get bids back, but probably 125,000 for the architectural services, which I think will be a big push, help us a lot. And then 50,000 for civil, 50,000 for geotech, and 25,000 for traffic. And those are just, high budgetary numbers. As we get bids in on those, we can kind of move money around as needed. But outside of those, I didn't know if people have kind of other numbers or other things that they want us to include for some of that. And if you could just use the raise hand function and then we can pull it in. And here's Betty. Hey, Betty. Perfect timing. We're talking numbers and budget, so your timing is impeccable. So yeah, my just finally on my thoughts too, like I'm saying is we'll, assuming this number gets budgeted, we would be appropriated at some point, right after town meeting. And then, there's a period of onboarding those services, getting them started. So I'm figuring the start of those are probably going to be the fall at some point, just knowing the pace of the summer with everyone. So use the summer to kind of advertise and onboard, and then hit the ground running in the fall. And then figuring, a burn rate of that stuff over the fall, winter, and kind of prepping for May town meeting, which we all realize, comes very quickly, January, February. So that's just kind of my overall feel. And again, I open it up for anybody's offer, commentary. But for us to finalize the article too, we do have to come up with a number and vote on it.
Sean, are you proposing that we do that now or go away and think about other items and come back to vote?
No, ideally we would have a vote tonight. That way the article can get finalized. The select board can then vote on it. And I'm comfortable going to a vote tonight because we've discussed this a couple times on, it's not the first time we're kind of bringing it up. Yeah, Aqua.
If we're voting tonight, it may make sense to include a category that we call miscellaneous, so that whatever thing comes up later, there may be funds to pay for it.
I'm fine with that. So knowing, for that miscellaneous fund, is there like a dollar amount or a percentage that you would typically want to carry?
Just suggesting, I'd say nothing more than 10%. If the team agrees, or maybe even lower, but just enough so that if we come up with, I think there are quite some unknowns here, and we may need just a little bit of money to take care of things.
Yeah.
I was going to say 10% as well.
Okay. All right, so that would put that kind of overall number then at 275, again, just based on those ballpark numbers that I was putting out there. And again, those are kind of budgetary numbers kind of on, just based on some of the services we've already received. So yeah, that would basically revise Article 3 for a $275,000 allocation. Yeah, Mike.
So if we do have a reserve fund, and if something is unexpected, unusual and unexpected, then we could ask for use of the reserve fund. At that point, you would need approval of the select board, the warrant committee. The reason I'm hesitating is we're going through budget discussions right now, and things are tight. And I think the town administrator right now has 250 in as a plug.
Okay.
And so I guess what I would do is if we wanted to have a vote, I would suggest a vote of up to 275, subject to discussion, subject to confirmation with the town administrator, or discussions with between the chair and the town administrator, because given the timing of different funding, there may be a better way to do it rather than allocate 275 right off the top. But Glenn may have a very good suggestion.
All right, Glenn, you're recognized.
I was just going to say, what you're really voting on tonight is your request to the warrant committee. A number that's going to appear in the back of the warrant as the request from the school building committee. The town administrator is going to propose a balanced budget to the warrant committee. They're going to act on it. It may or may not include the full 275, but what the request allows you to go up to 275 if more money became available before town meeting. So it could very well go into the warrant with a recommendation of 250, but the number in the back of the book allows it to be increased if necessary. But Mike's also right. There's a substantial amount in the reserve fund. And if we're talking, $20,000 or something like that, that's not an unusual amount to withdraw from the reserve fund for unbudgeted, unforeseen expense. Mm-hmm. So, but you really are only voting tonight for what your requested number is. What gets actually appropriated and recommended will come later.
Thanks, Glenn.
So I guess, given that, I'm comfortable voting for up to 275, and then we see how things shake out with the rest of the budget.
Okay. So with that, if everybody else is comfortable with that, essentially the next step would be, somebody offering a motion, seconded, and then we go to a vote. If not, we, even with that, we can have further discussion based on that motion.
All right. Well, I'll make a motion to recommend a warrant article to the select board to appropriate up to $275,000 for design services, geotechnical engineering, and traffic consulting. And what was the third? Is there another bucket, Sean?
Civil engineering.
And civil engineering.
Yeah, do we want to limit it just to those two? Just as Aqua said too.
So why don't we say for services including but not limited to? Because I think we should put some definition on
it. Yep.
Okay, I'll second that motion.
All right. And we're into discussion right now. So Ada, you have your hands up.
Yeah, I was just wondering where studies of lighting and landscape would go. Would that be under architectural services that we've got, or would that just come later in the design process?
Yeah, so lighting, I can speak kind of intimately on this one, but until we kind of get a site layout and start laying out lighting's probably not going to come in until later on. Mainly for that, they can do some conceptual layouts of lighting. I think we can look at it with the architects to look at specific fixtures and talk about it. But the final layouts of all that wouldn't come till later. The landscape portion, I agree with, I mean, and that would probably be some of those additional services, at least with the architect as we're negotiating their overall scope, to include that, mainly for, additional buffer zones to kind of make them a little more dense.
Great, thank you.
Yep. Tim, you recognized.
Thank you. So for the purpose of the notes, the way that I've worded this, the motion I tried to capture it as Mike and others were speaking. So I said to finalize, the committee conducts vote to present an article to the town to fund up to $275,000 to progress the efforts of the school building committee for services including but not limited to early architectural design, civil engineering, geotechnical engineering, and site soil classification and traffic study. Does that sound okay?
The only thing, Tim, I would say at the beginning to recommend to the select board.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. That was just for the purposes of the notes.
No, appreciate it. Thanks, Tim. Glenn, you recognized.
Yeah, this is almost more a question for Mike. The select board has put a warrant article on the warrant for the May town meeting. And that's what specifies what the money gets used for. It's to see what sum of money will be appropriated to do A, B, C, and D. So really, you don't have to get into the weeds of it here. You just have to say, the school building committee is requesting $275,000 for the purposes of the article. Because frankly, what we say it's going to be used for here is subservient to what the actual article itself says, which is, to supplement money granted at a prior town meeting for the purposes of the school building committee. And unless the select board's going to change that, the language of that article, you're really not talking about the language of the article here. And that's sort of for Mike.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, Glenn, but I think those, the description will be in the comment, right? So in the warrant committee, it'll be in the comment. So I just wonder if it'll make it, not to get too into the weeds here, but I just wonder if it'll make it easier if we just have that voted, that's what we're recommending, just so everyone knows it. And when the warrant committee develops its comment, it can go back to this and say, oh yeah, that's what. And so maybe it's not to change the article, but it's to recommend an article for a sum of money, and that sum of money should be used for the purposes, services, including but not limited to. Just so we kind of connect the article to the comment. Does that make sense? Do you think, Glenn?
Yeah, I think it does.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, Mr. Ritchie, how are you, sir?
Oh, I'm doing good. Thank you. Good. Hey, I just had just one question, and I don't know, maybe some, Betty White can clarify this. So I'm on the facilities subcommittee. We are talking about modular construction because of the overcrowdedness. Who's going to oversee that? Would that be a school department or a building committee? Because if it is going to be the building committee, this is the time to ask for that funding, because modular is going to cost $6 million, so 10% continues for the architect. So there goes a big chunk of money right there. That's going to be taking place within the next year, because obviously a lot of the things we were looking at are not panning out for us. So we're going back to modular now. So this just kind of throwing it out there.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I think in regards to the article right now, the Glenn and Mike were just talking about, it wouldn't include any of the work for the modulars. So, capturing that cost at this point, we wouldn't be able to do. That is something I'm having discussions with town council to kind of find out where the responsibility of that lies, whether it's school building committee or the facilities subcommittee. So you essentially, to answer your question, it probably will not be included as part of this ask. And then, it's a separate subject we'll have to bring up. On another note, congratulations on your retirement. Well deserved, sir. Yeah, Betty.
So I just want to tell Bill that we're actually going to postpone the facilities subcommittee meeting till later in the month when you return from your time off, so that you can discuss all of these issues with us before you depart.
Okay, I'm only 12 miles away, so.
We know where you live, Bill. I was in looking at some of the work at the Cunningham School based on that water burst too. So that was tragic to say the least. But we can talk about that another time. But essentially back in regards to the motion that's in front of us, it's been moved and seconded. So just seeing if there's any other further comment before we go to a vote. All right, seeing none. So yeah, based on that, we'll just do a roll call vote as I see everybody. And if you could verbally respond. Carrie Hurley.
Yes.
Dr. Miranda.
Yes.
Glenn Hoffman.
Yes.
All right. Tim Lombard.
Yes.
Scott Tarashak.
Yes.
Mike Zulis.
Yes.
Betty White.
Yes.
Aqua Bong.
Yes.
And Shauna Rourke. Yes. Perfect. Thank you. The next thing on the agenda under new business 2 is basically just an update for folks on our upcoming meetings. So I'll be at the Warrant Committee on Wednesday night of this week, kind of meeting with them. They asked for an informational session to kind of go over the update that we have. The last time we essentially met with them was regarding Fonpon, and previous to that was like an informational session on the overcrowding. So this time I'll be going into kind of detail of what I went into with Conservation Commission to get them up to speed on what the 2 articles that we're talking about, the first 2 in regards to attaining the land by eminent domain, and then the second article as far as the land swap. So Mike, are you planning on attending too on Wednesday? I just wasn't sure. And if not, that's fine too.
So Wednesday is the 8th?
Yes, sir.
Right? I think I can probably do that. Again, subject to my being told I need to be somewhere else, but I'll try.
Yeah, fully understood. Tim?
Did you say that was Tuesday or Wednesday?
Wednesday night, the 8th.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm just slowly trying to keep up with you.
No, I'll speak slower.
No, please don't.
No, that's fine. So essentially the pace of meetings, we'll be meeting with the Warrant Committee this night on Wednesday night. The site walk on Saturday. Betty, we kind of went through earlier in the meeting like a roster who is available Saturday. Are you available by chance? Just kind of.
I think so.
Okay. All right. So yeah, based on Scott, Betty, and Mike, we'll just discuss because right now there's definitely 3 confirmed, and then just need 2 more for the quorum, so we can touch base. Oh, and then Glenn, I didn't ask you to, Hoffman. Sorry about that.
Wednesday night?
No, Saturday morning. Sorry about that for the
I have to check the youth sports schedule, so I'll get back to you.
Okay, appreciate it.
I just make sure I don't have any games, but potentially, yes, I should be available.
Okay. All right, so 3 definites, 4 possibles. Well, hopefully we can hit the 5 out of that. And then essentially the last meeting that's not on the books yet that I'll be scheduling is with the Parks Commissioners, essentially similar to what we were doing with Conservation Commission, to bring them up to speed on the proposed land swap. So outside of the public meetings we're having with the town, just on this agenda item, I didn't know if anybody else has any other comment or questions in regards to that. Yeah, Tim.
You had said that when you meet with the Warrant Committee, you will be providing an informational session regarding the 2 articles that will be presented to town meeting, eminent domain and the land swap. Are you going to also touch on the fact that we just voted to enter another article to ask for additional funding?
Yeah, they don't have that on their agenda, so they're only talking about the 2 articles that I just mentioned, so they don't have the 3rd one on there. If it comes up, I'm sure we can talk about it on passing, but it won't be a deep dive topic that we jump into.
Okay.
Yeah, Mike.
Shauna, in terms of meetings, I know that you've been working hard to try to get a meeting with the Pine Tree Brook neighbors, and maybe we can get some kind of update on that and maybe when that goes forward, because I know that's been tough to schedule.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and that was kind of the next thing on the agenda too, is I was just trying to cover the town, like government public meetings. The next one that we have or essentially is informational sessions, but also in-person meetings. We have heard from members of Pine Tree Brook. I know Ada or myself have been trying to coordinate with Deborah Milbauer, who's, for lack of a better word, representing a number of folks there. So that's kind of on my agenda in the next week or 2 to schedule that meeting and meet with those folks, kind of review the overall plans that we're doing. In addition to, that meeting with them, we'll be doing other informational forums just for the general public, and then specific ones like we did last year, specifically for town meeting members. With the elections coming up, I don't know if anyone's looking at the town meeting member list, but there's a lot of new people running for town meeting, so it's good to kind of keep them updated on some of the new stuff that will be coming up at their first town meeting when they attend. So in regards to those informational sessions and upcoming kind of neighborhood meetings, anybody have any comments or questions? All right, seeing none. Next thing on the agenda is essentially, scheduling our next meeting, which tentatively I put in for 2 weeks from tonight, which would be the 20th. Knowing there's probably going to be some movement on the meetings that are coming up, the site walk and stuff like that, I figured a 2-week, review would be good, kind of leading into town meeting. So if that works for everybody, I'll send a reminder out just to pencil it in. Right. And then,
Sean, I'll be away on the 20th, just to let you know.
That's fine. All right. Then last thing on the agenda is to adjourn. So I'll entertain any motion to adjourn. Yeah, Aqua, sorry.
For the next meeting, will that be in person, hybrid, or all on Zoom?
Excellent point. So, following on Mr. Jackson's commentary, I know our last meeting that we did, we tried to do in person. I did try to do this meeting in person to secure the same room at the library, but it just wasn't available. I'll try to get ahead of that. The room that we had in last time was actually pretty nice. A lot of space. We can get in early and set up. My preference is to do these in person. I've said that, I've been saying that for, probably 8 months now. So, if everyone could kind of aim to plan to be in person, we'll do it that way. We still might do it as a hybrid, mainly just for community participation for folks that can't make it in person. So ideally, as many of us can be in person would be great. If you can't, hybrid would be fine too. Mike?
I think, Sean, the hybrid capability is limited to certain rooms. Cronin, maybe the maybe
The COA.
the blue and the COA definitely and blue, right?
Mhm.
COA and blue. So those are the ones that accommodate hybrid for the purposes of MATV anyway.
Yeah, the one thing that we utilized last time, Mike, was the OWL, which is the new device that the town administrator has that allows us to kind of hold remote meetings, virtually, at those spaces. So I'm not sure if that worked well last time or not. If it didn't, we can abandon it. But if we're going in person, we just got to make sure we're going to have a quorum in person for that reason. Ada?
Sean, I was just gonna say that the limited rooms in town that accommodate hybrid formats, it's helpful to plan in advance. And I don't know if you're talking about scheduling every 2 weeks, that it might behoove you to get those dates on the calendar so that you can reserve the rooms that you want.
Yeah, actually, so, for everyone on the call, would it be best, just assuming we're going to go every 2 weeks until town meeting? And if that works for everybody, I can just put that as the rhythm and, check with the town administrator to do that. Okay, and Glenn, you have your hand up.
In a fallback, we have an owl in the superintendent's conference room too. So if the other rooms are not available, we could always fall back into that. And on Monday nights, I can make sure we get that. So that's a fallback option. It's not a true hybrid, but we do have the owl there.
Okay, Carrie?
Just want to point out that every 2 weeks in April, you might run into April vacation. Just throwing it out there now.
Okay.
Because I agree, getting dates on the calendar would be very helpful.
Yeah. Okay. What I'll try to do is do a forecast. I mean, that April vacation, I'm away that week also. I'm trying to finally get a vacation, so it'll be good. So what I'll do is, for now, let's just aim for 2 weeks. We'll reconvene, and then, at our next meeting, I'll put that as one of my to-dos to kind of give a roadmap of future meetings leading out, take into account April vacation. So yeah, our next one will be in person. We'll try to do it hybrid if space is available. If I get enough people that we can do it in person and not do hybrid, assuming if the room isn't available, we'll book it that way. All right. All right, done with the meeting portion of the agenda.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, so anyone, second?
Second.
All right, seconded by Betty. All right, we'll do a roll call vote for that. Carrie Hurley,
Yes.
Dr. Miranda,
Yes.
Glenn Hoffman,
Yes.
Tim Lombard,
Yes.
Scott Tereshek,
Yes.
Mike Zulus,
Yes.
Betty White,
Yes.
and Aqua Bond,
Yes.
and Sean O'Rourke. Yes. Thank you all. See you in a couple weeks.